Chapter 2614, Ancient Secret Land, Priority Pick? Chapter 2614, Ancient Secret Land, Priority Pick? 100 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies. Silence dominated the room after Shifeng's question. Even Torre's gaze sharpened in an attempt to detect the swordsman's lie. "Are you telling the truth?" Torre asked. The various superpowers urgently needed experts with fully unlocked mana bodies. Only these experts could cope with the environments and monsters within level 100+, super large-scale team dungeons and hostile secret lands. Unfortunately, a handful, even just a dozen, experts with fully unlocked mana bodies would be useless during raids. A team of 100 of these experts would be a different story, however. With a full 100-man team, raiding these locations would be possible, and such a team would be invaluable to Violet's sword, which had located an immensely important, ancient secret land. Meanwhile, Long Wushang gaped at Shifeng from the reception room's entrance. He had never dreamed that Zero Wing's foundations were so frighteningly sturdy. 100 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies. With these 100 experts, no superpower would dare provoke Zero Wing, even if it didn't have much power in the West. If these 100 experts decided to retaliate in the fields or cause a scene in a guild city, the targeted superpower would definitely suffer. "Of course. I wouldn't have come all the way here, otherwise," Shifeng confirmed, nodding. Although Zero Wing only had a little over 24 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies right now, many of the guild's Tier 3 Refinement Realm experts had already reached 85% or higher thanks to the Lost Town special environment. At most, Zero Wing would need 3 more days to gather a full 100-man team. The raid on the ancient secret land wouldn't begin immediately. Violet's sword would need some time to prepare. Without the necessary tools, players wouldn't survive in the secret land, and by the time those tools were ready, Zero Wing should have all the experts it promised. Hence, Shifeng didn't consider his statement to be a lie. Torre and the other 2 instructors fell silent after hearing Shifeng's reply. "Are we actually going to agree to his offer, Instructor Torre? This ancient secret land is likely unique in God's domain. You already know how astounding the environment is for training. Black Flame is too greedy. We have already split half the entry slots with mythology. If we give another 100 entry slots to Zero Wing, we'll have less authority there than mythology, even if we retain a spot," Wildfighter asked Torre in the team chat. The ancient secret land had a strict entry limit. It was more like an ancient city, isolated from the outside world, than a true secret land. As long as players defeated the trial boss, they'd become ordinary citizens in the city, enjoying the city's various benefits. To monopolize this secret land, Violet's sword had partnered with mythology, and both guilds had dispatched large armies to barricade the entrance, preventing other powers from entering. Each guild would then occupy half of the available entry slots. Violet's sword had gone to great lengths to secure 200 entry slots, yet Zero Wing wanted 100 for helping the Super Guild defeat the trial boss. No matter how one looked at it, this didn't seem like a worthwhile transaction. Given another 2 weeks, Violet's sword would be more than capable of taking the trial boss down by itself. The Super Guild didn't need any of Zero Wing's help. Crimson Star nodded in agreement to Wildfighter's comment. "Guild leader Black Flame, while your proposal is tempting, you demand too much. I can offer a maximum of 10 entry slots, not one more," Torre said after giving the matter some thought. "Even without your help, we will capture the secret land. It only may take us a few days longer." "You might be right, but as far as I know, Violet's sword isn't the only power in control of the ancient secret land. Just one day could make a massive difference. I'm sure you're aware of this, Instructor Torre. Moreover, I don't just want 100 entry slots. I also want priority over one of the items the trial boss drops," Shifeng coolly declared, nodding. Long Wushang could only stare at the swordsman, utterly flabbergasted. How was this supposed to be a partnership negotiation? Violet's sword had clearly stated that it would succeed, with or without Zero Wing, but instead of reducing his demands, Shifeng had asked for even more, setting his sights on the trial boss's loot. He was simply insane. "You're correct. We're not the only guild in control of the ancient secret land right now, but you can't ally with the other guild, can you?" Zero Wing has offended mythology often in the past, Wildfighter countered with a grin. Violet Sword is Zero Wing's only prospect for an alliance. We're already being quite generous by offering 10 entry slots. If you don't like it, you'll have to find another way to enter the secret land. Zero Wing's conflict with mythology was no longer fresh news. If mythology hadn't been the only other guild to control the ancient secret land, Violet Sword might have conceded to Shifeng's demands. There was no way mythology and Zero Wing would work together at this point. Shifeng was dreaming if he thought he could claim 100 entry slots and priority over the trial boss's loot. Convinced Shifeng was a madman, Long Wushang couldn't help but shake his head. Zero Wing was immensely powerful in the east. In fact, it was so powerful that not even several superpowers could take it down. However, Zero Wing's strength was limited to the eastern continent. Even if the guild brought 100 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies to the west, it could, at most, annoy the various superpowers. Zero Wing couldn't reach the various superpowers routes, let alone those of a veteran super guild like Violet Sword. What if we enter the secret land by ourselves? Shifeng asked, smiling. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU enter the secret land yourselves? Crimson Star parroted, smirking. She then continued, Guild Leader Black Flame, I don't mean to belittle you, but do you know how large of a force our two guilds have stationed at the entrance? Not even 1,000 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies could dream of setting foot in the ancient secret land without our approval. To secure their hold, Violet Sword and Mythology had established a guild city around the ancient secret land's entrance. Without being able to destroy the city, no one would enter the secret land. Silently, Long Wushang nodded his agreement with Crimson Star's statement. He had visited this guild city when the Azure Chamber of Commerce had sent its lifestyle players to Violet Sword. That guild city's defenses were no weaker than the various super guilds' main headquarters. Is that so? Leisurely, Shifeng asked, but what if I have him? With that, Shifeng retrieved a summon guard scroll and called forth Versailles. Chapter 2615, Tier 4 Secret Silver Guard, Life Transition. Chapter 2615, Tier 4 Secret Silver Guard, Life Transition. When Shifeng summoned Versailles into the reception room, the room's mana transformed. So dense. So heavy. The mana inside the reception room didn't feel like mana at all. Everyone in the room felt as if they had been submerged in water and were drowning. A Tier 4 personal guard. How is this possible? Long Wushang and the Tier 3 assassin were stunned when they saw Versailles. They had seen level 120 personal guards before. After all, every superpower in the game had a few by now, but those had only been Tier 3 personal guards. They had never seen a level 120, Tier 4 personal guard before. They hadn't even thought one existed at this stage of the game. Reaching Tier 4 was an immensely difficult feat, even for personal guards. Most player and power-owned guards couldn't even reach Tier 4. Fine-gold guards had a relatively high chance of completing their Tier 4 promotion quests, but reaching that milestone required a lot of preparation and a lot of time. Even the various superpowers personal guards had just recently reached level 120. Thus, logically, getting one's hands on a Tier 4 personal guard at this stage should be impossible, yet Zero Wing had one. Tier 4 NPCs were the true big shots of God's domain. They qualified to rule major NPC cities and were beyond current players' reach. A Tier 4 personal guard. It seems the Eastern Continent superpowers have grossly underestimated Zero Wing. Their assumption that your guild is powerless outside of Cold Spring Forest is severely flawed, Torre commented as he gazed at Versailles. Even after seeing the Tier 4 personal guard, he still appeared quite calm. Even so, I do not think that a level 120, Tier 4 Secret Silver Guard can break into our two-guild city. Although the guild city in question was only basic rank, it was protected by an incredibly powerful defensive magic array. The magic array could endure Tier 4 attacks without any trouble. Otherwise, the city wouldn't have withstood the demonic creature army's invasion. The Western continent was far more dangerous than the East. Towns and cities faced frequent demonic creature assaults. These armies especially loved to target guild towns and cities. It wasn't odd to find 3 to 5 mythic monsters among each demonic creature army, in addition to hundreds of thousands of weaker demonic creatures. Trying to rely on a measly Tier 4 NPC to threaten a guild city jointly operated by 2 superguilds was laughable. Of course, a Tier 4 NPC, particularly a Tier 4 Great Wizard, could destroy an ordinary guild city, but trying to destroy a superpower's guild city with a single Tier 4 NPC was ridiculous. Every guild city a superpower established would have some means of fending off or exterminating Tier 4 beings. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any difference between superpowers and ordinary powers. That's right. A Tier 4 secret silver guard would be invincible in the fields. Unfortunately, it is not enough to threaten a superpower's guild city, Crimson Star said after snapping out of her daze. From near the reception room's doors, Long Wushang nodded in agreement. The strength Zero Wing had just revealed was astonishing. If Zero Wing were dealing with a weaker superpower, that power might concede to Zero Wing's demands. Unfortunately, Zero Wing was dealing with Violet Sword, a veteran superguild that was almost as powerful as the 5 great superguilds. Not even 2 or 3 Tier 4 secret silver guards would be enough to change Violet Sword's mind. Indeed, a Tier 4 secret silver guard would take forever just to blast open a guild city's defensive magic array, Shifeng agreed. Smiling, he asked, "But what if I have a Tier 4 Feingold ranked Great Wizard?" Impossible. Just having one Tier 4 personal guard is a miracle. How could you have another one? Crimson Star instinctively opposed Shifeng's calm question. A Tier 4 secret silver guard wasn't strong enough to break a guild city's defensive magic array, but it would be a different story for a Tier 4 Feingold guard. Generally, Feingold guards possessed taboo skills and curses that allowed them to exhibit power beyond their tier. With the power of a Tier 4 taboo skill or curse, even shattering a city's defensive barrier with a single hit would be possible. However, rising from Tier 3 to Tier 4 was a major feat for personal guards. Even personal guards with extremely high growth potential would need to prepare extensively before challenging their Tier 4 promotion quest. Moreover, they still had a high chance of failing, and sending a large number of personal guards to challenge their Tier 4 promotion quest with the hope that some would succeed wasn't feasible for current guilds. When a Tier 3 personal guard wished to challenge their Tier 4 promotion quest, they needed a large number of magic cores, and not just any would do. These magic cores had to come from level 100 plus mythic monsters. Unfortunately, level 100 plus mythic monsters didn't even have a 5% drop rate for magic cores, and only demonic creatures would drop them at all. As a result, even the various superguilds could, at most, afford to send one personal guard to challenge their Tier 4 promotion quest. Even if Zero Wing hunted monsters with a Tier 3 Night division, there were only so many mythic-ranked demonic creatures in Cold Spring Forest. The fact that Zero Wing had nurtured a single Tier 4 personal guard was a miracle, but having 2 was simply impossible. I might have only one Tier 4 personal guard, but that doesn't mean that I can't increase his growth potential, Shifeng said before revealing a translucent, multicolored fruit. Everyone in the reception room felt physically and mentally restless the moment Shifeng retrieved the colorful fruit from his bag. Their instincts screamed at them to devour the fruit. The fruit of life. Who are you? Crimson Star demanded, staring at the colorful fruit in shock. Shifeng's Tier 4 personal guard had been surprising enough, yet this man also had the incomparably precious fruit of life. This was unbelievable. The fruit of life was legendary throughout God's domain. People had even called it the holy fruit. Not only could the fruit of life resurrect the dead, but it could also help living creatures recover to their peak and elevate their potential. There were even rumors that players could boost their life ratings significantly by consuming it. If they spotted a fruit of life, even high-tiered NPCs would do everything in their power to claim it, not to mention players. In Crimson Star's opinion, though, this legendary fruit was just that, a legend. It was beyond the reach of players. The only known way to obtain the fruit of life was to harvest it from the elven race's tree of life. However, elves consider these fruits holy. They would never trade or sell the fruit to outsiders. If players wanted their own fruit of life, they could only obtain one by attacking a location that housed a tree of life. However, the elves' trees of life were so heavily guarded that not even Tier 6 gods could reach them. Moreover, Most of the various kingdoms and empires great and grand wizards had learned from elven great and grand wizards. Anyone that dared attack the elves' main headquarters would only make an enemy of these kingdoms and empires. No one under the heavens would be able to save them. Even Torre stared at the fruit in Chifeng's hand in astonishment. The fruit of life. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The various superpowers had been desperately searching for the item after learning about it. Based on what they had learned, there was only one way, other than raiding an elven city, to procure a fruit of life. While the elves refused to trade or sell these fruits, they sometimes offered them as gifts to players who had significantly helped their race. Hence, there were quite a few fruits lying around. Only, most of these fruits of life had been given away decades, maybe centuries, ago, so no one knew their current whereabouts. Even with the superpowers' powerful information networks, no one had found the slightest clue leading to these gifted fruits of life, and yet, Chifeng held one in his palm. "Eat it," Chifeng said, passing the colorful fruit to Versailles. Versailles did not hesitate, excitedly and fanatically taking the fruit. His changed attitude made the room's mana restless. After a deep, sincere bow of gratitude to Chifeng, Versailles ate the fruit of life as the players in the reception room watched. Chapter 26:16, Potential Skyrockets, World Creation. Chapter 26:16, Potential Skyrockets, World Creation. Crimson Star's and Wildfighter's eyes went wide as they watched Chifeng give the fruit of life to his personal guard with no hesitation. What a waste. The fruit of life was an incredibly rare and valuable item, far more valuable than a Tier 4 Feingold guard. That fruit could permanently increase a player's life rating or upgrade a Feingold guard to Dark Gold rank, drastically increasing the personal guard's chance of reaching Tier 5. Versailles was only a Tier 4 Secret Silver guard. Even if the fruit of life upgraded him to Feingold rank, and his combat power drastically increased, he wouldn't become much more valuable. Feingold guards had almost no chance of reaching Tier 5. Meanwhile, players could challenge their Tier 4 promotion quest once they reached level 120, which would significantly decrease a Tier 4 personal guard's value. Using the fruit of life to help a player or personal guard reach Tier 5 would be far more beneficial than using it to boost a Tier 4 NPC's combat power. Not many in God's domain would reach Tier 5. That much was clear after seeing how few players completed their Tier 3 promotion quests. While Crimson Star and Wildfighter mourned the fact that Chifeng had wasted the fruit, a visible layer of life energy formed around Versailles. Initially, the Tier 4 Great Wizard had been old and decrepit. His aura had been frightening, but it hadn't been able to hide his fading life aura. Now, however, Versailles regained his youthful vigor at a visible rate. Not only was his life aura growing stronger, but he also began to appear younger. After 5 seconds, Versailles had gone from looking like someone in his 70s to someone in his 50s. As soon as the process ended, the mana density in the room skyrocketed. Space started to isolate the room from the outside world, with Versailles as its commander. World creation. How is this possible? Crimson Star's jaw dropped. Instructor Torre could only stare at the Tier 4 personal guard, dumbfounded. Once God's Domain's NPCs reached Tier 4, they almost always gained a personal domain. These domains were the reason that Tier 4 NPCs were so powerful. The domains NPCs gained weren't a result of a skill or spell, but naturally formed. They also weren't limited like domain skills. Not only could Tier 4 NPCs easily suppress their enemies with their natural domains, but they could also elevate their own combat power. These domains were also the reason that Tier 4 NPCs could effortlessly take on a large group of Tier 3 NPCs of the same level. If players tried to challenge a Tier 4 NPC without a Tier 4 combatant, it wouldn't matter how many Tier 3 players they had, they'd all die. This was also why Tier 4 NPCs qualified to serve as magistrates in major NPC cities, while Tier 3 NPCs did not. If players tried to attack a major NPC city without strong enough fighters, they'd accomplish nothing, regardless of how many combatants they had. NPCs weren't like monsters. Tier 4 monsters were only powerful due to their basic attributes, while players relied on skills, spells, and numbers to make up the attribute differences. Even Tier 2 players could defeat Tier 4 monsters with a large enough team. NPCs, however, had an overwhelming advantage with their mana control. A Tier 4 NPC could use their mana to suppress every enemy within range. If players couldn't break free from the mana's bindings, they wouldn't even be able to put up a fight. However, Versailles had gone past obtaining a natural domain, now able to use world creation. Versailles had mastered his mana control before, but now he ruled over it. With his will alone, he could manipulate mana, bending it to his rules as if creating a new world around himself. Normally, however, only Tier 5 NPCs could command world creation. Even Shifeng was astonished. He had never realized how amazing Versailles was. While the Fruit of Life could increase an NPC's growth potential, it wouldn't immediately alter the NPC's basic attributes or combat standards unless the NPC had some lingering injuries that weakened them. Any Tier 4 NPC with world creation was a true big shot, only one step away from reaching Tier 5. They were far stronger than ordinary Tier 4 NPCs. The difference between a Tier 4 NPC with world creation and one without was like the difference between a Tier 3 player with a fully unlocked mana body and a player that had yet to accomplish the feat. There was at least half a tier between the two. Elated, Shifeng immediately inspected Versailles' statistics. Versailles, Yifeng's personal guard, gender, male age, 76 loyalty, 93 growth potential, 90 level 120 class, Tier 4 Great Wizard crap. His growth potential is just 1 point away from the Dark Gold rank. When Shifeng saw Versailles' growth potential, realization dawned on him. Now, Shifeng was absolutely certain that Versailles' original growth potential hadn't been Secret Silver rank, but Fine Gold rank. Moreover, he should have been a Tier 4 big shot on the cusp of reaching Tier 5. The Fruit of Life simply wasn't capable of providing such a huge growth potential increase. They were talking about a whopping 16 points. Even the Fruit of Life, known as the Holy Fruit, couldn't boost an NPC's growth potential so massively. The only explanation was that Versailles hadn't fully recovered after drinking the Water of Life and had failed to recover to his full growth potential. Shifeng didn't know what had left Versailles in such a state, but he was overjoyed and ecstatic. He was even happier than when he had obtained a fragmented legendary item. He had already known that Versailles was an amazing Tier 4 NPC, but now, he learned that this personal guard even had world creation. With this, he could accomplish more than ever, including visiting many of the locations he couldn't reach during his previous life. After players reached Tier 3 and fully unlocked their mana bodies, no land in God's domain was beyond their reach. While they could even visit the most dangerous maps, however, returning would be another matter altogether. After all, level 100+ maps made up the majority of the vast continent of God's domain. The human kingdoms and empires only occupied land suitable for their residence, which only included a small fraction of the main continent. There were far more maps that were too dangerous for humans. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Tier 3 players were still limited to relatively safe locations. They'd only be attempting suicide if they tried to explore the truly dangerous areas on the continent. They might even have an encounter that would force them to restart their account. Now that Shifeng had a Tier 4 world creation NPC by his side, however, he could visit the game's truly lethal maps. These dangerous locations generally served as the venues for Tier 4 promotion quests and contained many ancient inheritances. When the various superpowers experts had reached Tier 4 and beyond in the past, they had spent much of their time in these areas, rarely returning. They could only continue to grow stronger by exploring these maps. Realizing how much time he had spent gazing at his personal guard stats, Shifeng quickly suppressed his excitement and returned his attention to Torre and his two companions. May I know if Zero Wing now qualifies to negotiate a partnership with your guild? Shifeng asked Torre. Chapter 2617, Secret of the Ancient Secret Land. Chapter 2617, Secret of the Ancient Secret Land. Even after a long moment, Torre and his comrades couldn't find a proper response to Shifeng's question. Shifeng was simply too ruthless. To ensure that he'd be able to enter the Ancient Secret Land, Shifeng had wasted a Fruit of Life to upgrade his personal guard to Fine Gold rank. Not even they would dare behave so lavishly. However, They had to admit that this swordsman was extremely fortunate to upgrade his personal guard to a Tier 4 world creation NPC. With this single NPC, Shifeng could blast through a basic city's defensive magic array. Versailles could cause a huge scene inside the city, allowing Shifeng and his team to pass into the ancient secret land unhindered. Instructor Torre, Black Flame must be dreaming, Wildfighter said in the team chat. Even if he can break into the city and enter the ancient secret land, he'll only be able to do so a handful of times, at most. I refuse to believe he can come and go from our city as he pleases forever. Moreover, mythology will have to bear half of the entry slots we lose because of Zero Wing, significantly reducing our losses. When our two guilds gain Tier 4 experts, his personal guard will be useless, and our guild will still have 200 entry slots. The ancient secret land contained an ancient city independent from God's domain's two main continents. Even if players defeated the trial boss and became citizens, they would need to remain within the city for some time to enjoy its benefits. Players wouldn't gain access to all of the city's benefits when they first reached the city. However, while Zero Wing could get into the ancient secret land, the amount of time its players could stay in the city would be limited. Players could only extend their stay with a special tool. 1 week. Even with this special tool, players could only reside in the ancient secret land for a maximum of 7 natural days. If they did not leave on time, they'd starve to death. The special tool in question also had a 10-day cooldown. In other words, Shifeng would have to break into Violet Sword and Mythology's Guild City repeatedly to continue enjoying the secret land's benefits. Not only were the various superpowers searching for an easier way to unlock their experts' mana bodies, however, but they were also preparing for the Tier 4 promotion quests. This meant that Zero Wing had very little time left to take advantage of the secret land. Crimson Star nodded in agreement with Wildfighter's claim. There was no way their two guilds could form an alliance. After all, Zero Wing couldn't offer enough benefits to warrant 100 entry slots. Torre didn't immediately reply to Wildfighter's proposal. Instead, he closed his eyes and fell deep into thought. After some time, the man's eyes opened, and he looked at Shifeng, saying, "Guild leader Black Flame, a partnership between our guilds isn't exactly out of the question." Instructor Torre? Both Wildfighter and Crimson Star were surprised to hear Torre's response. Violet Sword didn't need to agree to Shifeng's demands, and their guild leader and grand elders would never agree to such laughable conditions. "What are your conditions?" Shifeng calmly asked. Shifeng admitted that he had demanded quite a bit, but he had no choice. This was all for the sake of helping Zero Wing's members reach Tier 4. With the guild's current resources, he could only guarantee that a few select individuals would complete their promotion quests. Everyone else's chances were minute, at best. If Zero Wing couldn't nurture enough Tier 4 experts, it would struggle to defend its current resources and territory. Too many superpowers targeted his guild, and they were only powerless against Zero Wing now due to the Night Division and its guild city's formidable defenses. However, once the era of Tier 4 dawned, destroying guild cities wouldn't just become possible, it had become common. When God's domain had reached the Tier 4 era in the past, it had been the craziest chapter of the game's history. The various superpowers had fought like madmen, destroying countless guild cities. Many had even been annihilated. This was also one of the reasons that Shifeng was so desperate to reach Tier 4. Although he could rely on Versailles to force his way into the ancient secret land, that wasn't a long-term plan. Allying with Violet Sword was his best option. He'd only resort to force if the Super Guild refused to work with him. "I only require that you assist us with one thing, Guild leader Black Flame," Torre said. "So long as you complete this task, we will agree to all of your conditions." "What is it?" Torre's statement piqued Shifeng's curiosity. He hadn't expected this man to agree to his conditions so easily. "It's quite simple. I just need you to clear the ancient secret land's hero trial," Torre declared. "Once you clear it, we'll agree to your demands, but if you fail, we'll ask you to leave. When the time comes, our guilds will rely on their own strength to enter the ancient secret land." The hero trial? Shifeng was a little confused. As far as he could remember, the ancient secret land's trial only had 2 difficulties, and neither was called hero. The hero trial. Instructor Torre, that's too risky. We only have one opportunity. We will not get another chance if we fail. How can Zero Wings people possibly complete it? Wildfighter anxiously complained. The Ancient Secret Lands trial only had two difficulties on the surface, normal and elite. However, as a bonus for activating the Ancient Secret Land, they had the opportunity to face an even harder trial, the hero trial. As long as players cleared the normal trial, they'd become official citizens in the ancient city, enjoying the various benefits the city had to offer. However, based on Violet Sword's research, clearing the hero trial would instantly grant the players noble status. There was a huge difference between the benefits a noble had access to and those of an ordinary citizen. While players could improve their rank, rising to noble status would require a ridiculous amount of time and effort. Unfortunately, Violet Sword only had one chance to attempt the hero trial. They had originally intended to wait until the hero trial's time limit was up, which was in roughly 30 days. That way, they'd have the best possible chance of clearing the trial. However, not only had Torre just suggested they face the hero trial sooner than planned, but he also requested Zero Wings members clear it. While Zero Wings members had fully unlocked their mana bodies, their combat standards were far from satisfactory. Asking Zero Wings members to clear the hero trial would be a huge waste. If you fail the hero trial, I'd like Zero Wing to refrain from targeting the Ancient Secret Land for 10 days. Are you willing to accept this challenge, Guild Leader Black Flame? Torre asked Shifong. As Torre finished his question, realization dawned on Wildfighter and Crimson Star. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. While using the hero trial to gain a 10-day buffer was somewhat extravagant, it would give Violet Sword more than enough time to prepare for the normal trial. Once Violet Sword completed the trial, and its members became ordinary citizens in the ancient city, Zero Wing wouldn't be able to affect the guild's development over much, even if they made it into the ancient secret land. In fact, Zero Wing might not be allowed in the city as a result. Of course, Shifong had to agree to the challenge first. Guild Leader Black Flame, do you dare to accept this challenge? Violet Sword has spent an enormous amount of resources to secure this ancient secret land. We can't simply hand over half of our available slots for nothing. You, at least, need to prove that Zero Wing can earn these slots, Crimson Star prodded, faintly smiling at Shifong. Deal. I agree to your conditions, Shifong replied after giving the matter some thought. However, I have an additional requirement. If you can agree to it, we will sign the contract immediately. Otherwise, as Instructor Torre has said, we will have to rely on our own strength to get into the secret land. What's this requirement? Wildfighter asked, curious. Chapter 2618, Ancient Legacy. Chapter 2618, Ancient Legacy. Earlier, I stated that I want the first pick of the trial boss's loot. That condition still stands, but I'm sure you're aware of how difficult the hero trial is. 100 Zero Wing members won't be enough to clear it, Shifong calmly stated. Hence, I need your full cooperation. I repeat, your full cooperation. I will choose the 200 raid team members from among my people. Of course, you can send a few dozen players, as well. Once we clear the trial, we'll each take half of the given entry slots. I'm sure that's a fitting trade-off, don't you think? By the time Shifong finished speaking, Wildfighter and Crimson Star were stunned. Neither of them had expected Shifong to make such an outrageous demand. They had thought this swordsman would propose a more excessive condition, such as requiring Violet Sword's members to serve as cannon fodder. They had mentally prepared to watch their members die several times. However, they had never dreamed that Shifong wouldn't demand an even higher price, but offer to include more of his guild members in the raid. Even Aqua Rose, Long Wushang, and the others near the reception room's door were flabbergasted. Shifeng's last condition meant Zero Wing would do all the work for Violet Sword. It was insane. That won't be a problem. As long as you clear the hero trial, select any raid members you want. In fact, we won't even impose a penalty if our guild members die in the raid, Torre said. Although he was similarly surprised by Shifeng's proposal, he nodded in agreement. However, Our people will ignore your orders if they think the raid is impossible, and you ask them to throw their lives away. Violet's sword had already prepared for multiple team wipes if it meant clearing the hero trial. Since Shifeng's condition would reduce the number of casualties their guild suffered, Torre was more than willing to agree. If that's the case, I agree, Shifeng said, nodding. Give me 3 days. I'll lead my men to the ancient secret land in 3 days. Meanwhile, Silent Wonder will remain here to help you. 3 days should be enough time for you to prepare the necessary tools. 3 days. Wildfighter frowned slightly. He hadn't thought Shifeng would want to act so soon. He had assumed they'd have around 5 days to prepare. Including the agreed-upon 10-day buffer, Violet's sword might have been able to gather enough experts to complete the elite trial. That won't be a problem. You may enter Violet Light City in 3 days. We will be waiting for you there, Torre said. Following which, Shifeng and Torre signed a contract. If Zero Wing cleared the hero trial, Violet's sword would surrender 100 entry slots to the ancient secret land. If Zero Wing failed, the guild would be prohibited from setting foot in the secret land for 10 days. With the contract signed, Shifeng promptly left Holy Flame City. Guild leader, 3 days isn't enough time. We can't even transfer 100 players to the Western continent within 3 days, and why did you offer to bring even more of our people into this raid? Aqua Rose asked from behind Shifeng on the Thunder Eagle. Exploring secret lands always had a high casualty rate. While a team could reap plenty of benefits, Zero Wing would only receive a fraction of what this secret land had to offer. Violet's sword would gain the most benefit. Zero Wing didn't need to sacrifice so many members just to help this super guild gain access. Long Wushang found Shifeng's decision a bit odd, as well, but since he wasn't a member of Zero Wing, he was in no position to question the swordsman. If this were an ordinary secret land, I wouldn't have offered to contribute so much manpower, but we're talking about a secret land that has survived since ancient times. Moreover, we're going to challenge this land's trial, Shifeng said, smiling. What do you think a trial is? Isn't it a test of strength that grants bountiful rewards when cleared? Aqua Rose replied, confused by her guild leader's question. That much was common knowledge in God's domain. You're only half correct, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Half? Aqua Rose's confusion grew. What do you mean? A trail is also an excellent training opportunity, Shifeng explained. It is true that God's domain's trails test players' strength, but a larger part of the reason for their existence is to help players grow even stronger. This is especially true with the trials from ancient times. The rewards are only a bonus for clearing these ancient trials. The trial itself is far more valuable. These trials contain complete legacies from ancient times. Even breaking past the mana body's 100% limit could be possible if we can comprehend a fraction of these legacies. Why else would there only be one opportunity to challenge the ancient secret land's hero trial? Before players had reached Tier 4 and began to explore the game's truly dangerous locations in the past, everyone had regarded trials like dungeons, nothing more. However, once players had reached Tier 4 and begun exploring these areas, they had found one ancient trial after another. As these Tier 4 experts continued to clear the ancient trials, they continued to grow stronger. Everyone realized how important God's domain's trials were after this discovery, especially those that had survived intact since ancient times. Every ancient trial was a golden opportunity. Since Violet's sword had offered to abandon the chance to challenge the ancient secret land's hero trial, Shifeng had to take advantage of this opportunity. He had even almost failed to contain his excitement and exposed the hero trial's secrets when Torre had stated the condition. If possible, Shifeng wanted to monopolize all 200 raid slots, but Violet's sword would need a representative to claim the ancient city's entry slots, so it would have to send a few players, regardless of its desires. Guild leader, are you saying that we can use this trial to unlock more of our members' mana bodies? Excitement flashed in Aqua Rose's eyes. If this were true, they had just hit the jackpot. She had experienced ancient times training systems personally. The best example was the extraordinary tower. Her training was many times more efficient in that tower than anywhere else she had been in God's domain. It was also thanks to the extraordinary tower that she could fight domain realm experts, despite only having reached the Void Realm. If she and Zero Wing's other members could improve their combat standards and mana control, they'd have a much easier time with their Tier 4 promotion quests. Why would it be that easy? We only have one opportunity to face the trial. Whether you gain anything from it will depend on you, Shifeng replied, rolling his eyes. Not even 1 in 10,000 Tier 3 experts would cross the mana body's 100% threshold. How could all of Zero Wing's members make a breakthrough after facing a single trial? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. This was just like with the Extraordinary Tower. Despite the tower's exceptional training mechanisms regarding the realms of truth, many Zero Wing core members had yet to reach the truth realm. Even so, this is an excellent opportunity. At least we have a chance to grow stronger. Some among us might even make a breakthrough like Violet, if we're lucky, Aqua Rose said, smiling. Long Wushang, who sat nearby, was tempted as he eavesdropped on the conversation. He had never realized that ancient trials offered such a benefit, either. He had seen the strength one gained when they unlocked more than 100% of their mana body. Violet Cloud hadn't even reached the domain realm, yet she had defeated Sinful Flame. In the end, Long Wushang couldn't contain himself and asked Shifeng, guild leader Black Flame, "May I know if you'd be willing to sell some of the entry slots to Azure?" "Of course, we will pay a sufficient price. You may state any demands you wish." Chapter 2619, Unfathomable Zero Wing. Chapter 2619, Unfathomable Zero Wing. Long Wushang's request surprised Aqua Rose and the others a little. They had never expected the man to suggest a partnership with Zero Wing. Long Wushang was an extremely prideful man. Even after Zero Wing had put on an outstanding display of strength during Azure's family competition, his attitude toward them and their guild had only improved from indifferent to normal. Rather, he merely saw Zero Wing as an equal now. The Azure Chamber of Commerce rivaled super guilds, after all, and while it might not be a match for Zero Wing and Violet Sword's gift for nurturing talented players, the Chamber's influence, resources, and manpower were far beyond that of Zero Wing. Moreover, Azure's family competition this year had only involved the younger members from the 5 main shareholder families. Not all of Azure's young talents had participated. Most of the Chamber's younger experts weren't even from the 5 main shareholder families, and some of them were even stronger than Yang Xiaoqian. However, they didn't have the necessary qualifications to participate in the family competitions. "Since Azure is willing to cooperate, I don't mind selling a few slots, but how many do you want, Elder Long?" Shifeng asked, not surprised in the least by Long Wushang's request. Aqua Rose and the others, on the other hand, didn't realize how important the younger generation was to the various superpowers. To the various superpowers, the younger members were their future. Take the Azure Chamber of Commerce, for example. A large part of the reason for the guild's current achievements was the value it placed on nurturing young talents. In contrast, some first-rate guilds never rose beyond that, despite their many decades of experience, because they didn't value their younger members. Unless first-rate guilds recruited an astonishing genius, they remained first-rate for the rest of their existences. Since Shifeng had exposed the fact that players could potentially grow stronger through the Ancient Secret Lands hero trial, he had expected Long Wushang to instantly consider a partnership with Zero Wing, regardless of the man's pride. Long Wushang's instincts as one of Azure's Grand Elders was also why Shifeng had fearlessly informed Aqua Rose of the hero trial's peculiarities. If he hadn't wanted anything, he would have had the discussion away from Long Wushang. Allying with Azure was of the utmost importance since Zero Wing didn't have any power on the western continent, aside from the Starlight Fortress. If Zero Wing wanted to secure a stable foothold in the west, it needed to ally itself with the local superpowers. While Divine Tribe was a powerful ally, the guild's commercial abilities couldn't compare to Azure's. Divine Tribe couldn't offer Zero Wing any assistance with intercontinental travel, either. Moreover, Zero Wing already had a dialogue with Azure due to Silent Wonder. Partnering with Azure would be a safer and more reliable option. Purchasing 30 or 40 slots would be fantastic, but if that's not possible, we'll be happy with 10, as well, Guild Leader Black Flame, Long Wushang hesitantly ventured after giving the matter some thought. The Azure Chamber of Commerce was a massive organization. The guild needed to nurture all of its young talents, including those from the shareholder families and those who weren't. With enough slots, he could help the rest of the guild's younger experts. Of course, if Shifeng refused, he at least had to purchase enough for the 5 main shareholder families. 40. After giving the matter some thought, Shifeng said, "That's fine, but you will have to agree to 3 conditions." "That's fine." Long Wushang's eyes lit up. Eagerly, he continued, "Please, state your conditions, guild leader Black Flame. We'll even agree to 4 or 5 demand. 40 entry slots would be more than enough for the 5 main families' young talents, but he'd also be able to include the outside experts. If this negotiation succeeded, the guild's neutral elders and grand elders would definitely side with the Long family. "First, I want Azure's help with a matter. I need to transport some of Zero Wing's members to the western continent in 3 days. We'll need 100 or so," Shifeng said. "That won't be a problem. 3 days is more than enough time. When the time comes, just have them gather in the 10 Saints Empire," Long Wushang agreed without hesitation. Intercontinental travel might be difficult for other superpowers, but that was no problem for Azure. Not even transporting 200 players would be a problem. At most, they'd have to spend more magic crystals. "For my second condition, I want a medium shipyard and a plot of golden land in the Silver Moon Empire's Oceantide City," Shifeng continued. Trade between the 2 main continents would rely on naval transportation in the future. Meanwhile, Oceantide City was the largest port city in the Silver Moon Empire. As long as Zero Wing had roots in this city, doing business between the 2 continents would be easy. "This won't be a problem, either. I'll notify my eldest brother later. You can start conducting business there as soon as the handover procedures are complete," Long Wushang said, not at all surprised by Shifeng's second condition. Zero Wing had barely any territory in the west. If it wished to acquire the western continent's resources, the quickest way would be establishing itself in the west's port cities. That way, it could travel between the continents more often and transport far more cargo. After all, players could only transport a limited amount of items via teleportation. With contact between the 2 continents still being so difficult, one could resell merchandise from either area for a high price. However, those prices would fall as more powers gained the ability to travel between the east and west. Zero Wing would need to increase its sales volume to maintain a sizable income. Thus, securing a port city in the west was a must for the guild. "My third requirement is the most important. I need Azure's complete Void Realm legacy," Shifeng earnestly declared, glancing at Long Wushang. Zero Wing still didn't have a complete Void Realm legacy, and because of that, it wasn't as well equipped for nurturing talented players as the various superpowers. If Zero Wing could acquire a complete Void Realm legacy, the guild's strength would reach a whole new level, becoming a true superpower. "That," Long Wushang hesitated. "The complete Void Realm legacy is one of the guild's core secrets. We've spent decades refining it. I'm afraid I don't have the authority to agree to that condition." While the 40 entry slots were precious, this was only an opportunity. Trading the secrets the guild had relied on to survive for one chance was absurd. Not even the guild's other elders and grand elders would agree to such an unfair demand. "I know it's excessive, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You won't get a second chance. Moreover, we're talking about a legacy that has survived since ancient times. I guarantee it will contain secrets regarding the Tier 4 promotion quests," Shifeng unhurriedly explained. "If that reason isn't enough, I can offer an additional benefit." "What benefit?" Long Wushang asked curiously. Azure's complete Void Realm legacy was one of the guild's most precious secrets. Sharing this secret with another guild would be the equivalent of weakening its foundation. A minor benefit wasn't enough of an incentive. "I can help 3 of Azure's experts surpass 100% of their mana body's potential. Of course, the 3 individuals will have to be exceptionally talented. Ordinary experts won't do. What do you think?" Shifeng asked, smiling. "You're saying you'll help them grow as powerful as Violet Cloud, transcending tiers?" Shi Feng's offer astonished Long Wushang, and for a moment, he doubted the swordsman's claim. Anyone that had watched Violet Cloud's match against Sinful Flame would likely never forget her strength. She was simply too formidable. Violet Cloud's strength was no longer just a result of combat techniques or standards. She had pure power. Even with the same basic attributes as Sinful Flame, she had emerged victorious. If she had even slightly higher basic attributes, her victory would have been even more outstanding. Yet, Shi Feng now informed him that Zero Wing could nurture such monsters. That's right, Shi Feng said, nodding. To prove it, I'll even help these 3 players unlock their mana body's full potential in a day. Are you willing to accept my offer, Elder Long? Wait a minute, please. I need a moment to process this. I'll have to discuss the offer with my guild's Grand Elders first, as well, Long Wushang said. He could have viewed Shi Feng's offer as nonsense, but now, he couldn't afford to brush it. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. If Azure could really have 3 young monsters like Violet Cloud, it wouldn't have to worry about its future. That won't be a problem, Shi Feng said. Take your time, but I will need an answer within 2 days. Please, wait a moment, Guild Leader Black Flame. I will contact my 3rd brother now and push the Grand Elders to make a decision as soon as possible, Long Wushang said, nodding. He then contacted Long Xianglong and appraised him of the situation. When Long Xianglong heard about Shi Feng's offer in Azure's residence, he, too, was astonished. What did you say? Zero Wing can help us nurture 3 monsters on par with Violet Cloud. How is that possible? Chapter 2620, Crazed Azure. Chapter 2620, Crazed Azure. Azure Chamber of Commerce's residence, meeting room. Normally, it was very difficult to find Azure's Grand Elders gathered in a single location, yet nearly every one of them had convened in the top-floor meeting room, and they all looked impatient. Xianglong, why did you call us here so urgently? You know how busy we are right now. All of the various superpowers are frantically searching for ways to unlock their experts' mana bodies. If we fall behind now, we'll suffer later, a woman in exquisite, white mage robes complained. That's right. If this isn't something important, you'll have to pay for our losses, a robust, middle-aged man with crimson eyes and covered in glowing runes agreed, nodding. Despite such rude questioning, Long Xianglong didn't explode in a fit of rage. He tolerated these 2 not only because they were Grand Elders in Azure, but because their strength was second only to Sinful Flame's, as well. They were even stronger than Long Xianglong, the Long family's most formidable expert. Along with Triumphant Howl, they were Azure's 3 monsters, and each represented Azure's non-family members. Why isn't Triumphant Howl here yet? Long Xianglong asked, glancing at the empty seat beside the 2. You know him. Unless the guild is going to war or is at risk of destruction, he doesn't care about anything besides leveling, the crimson-eyed man said. Forget about him. Why did you call for us here? All right, then. With 80% of the guild's Grand Elders present, we should have enough people to make a decision, Long Xianglong said, sighing. While Azure's 3 monsters were incredibly powerful, they were also free spirits. They hated restrictions and rarely listened to the ruling family's representatives. What exactly has happened, Lunatic Long? You actually used a Grand Elder mobilization order. Has something gone wrong with Violet Sword over Silent Wonder? Duan Hanshan demanded, smirking at Long Xianglong. Duan Hanshan had already learned about Shi Feng taking Silent Wonder to Violet Sword's residence the moment Azure's family competition had ended in hopes of settling the dispute between the Long family and the Super Guild. However, he doubted the issue would be so easily resolved. The Zeus Corporation's reputation was at stake, and if the Long family refused to cooperate, it would set a bad example for the other powers under the corporation's command. Even if Silent Wonder were of little significance to the Zeus Corporation's plans, it wouldn't let the matter rest so easily. Meanwhile, Zero Wing didn't have enough power in the West to convince Violet Sword to budge. If the negotiation didn't go well, Violet Sword might even move against the Long family and Zero Wing directly. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, Old Ice Demon. The matter regarding Wonder has already been dealt with, Long Xianglong shot back. As a matter of fact, I've gathered you all here today to discuss good news. This matter might even affect Azure's future. Something that can actually influence Azure's development. Long Wushang left with Zero Wing to visit Violet Sword. Have we secured a partnership with the Super Guild over the ancient secret land? The white-clad woman asked, a hint of anticipation flashing in her eyes. The only thing she could think of that might affect Azure's future was the ability to nurture experts. Based on the information Azure had obtained, Violet Sword had discovered an ancient secret land that included an ancient training ground. If Azure's young experts could use this training ground, they could grow significant. Happy Smiley, you're half correct, Long Xianggong replied, chuckling. Half? Have we not negotiated an alliance with Violet Sword? Duan Hanshan asked, confused. Correct. We're cooperating with Zero Wing, Long Xianglong said, nodding. Black Flame is willing to sell us 40 entry slots into the ancient secret land, but in exchange, Black Flame wants our complete Void Realm legacy. Is Black Flame insane? You're talking about our guild's foundation, yet he wants it for 40 measly slots. Only a fool would agree to such a partnership. Have you really gone mad, lunatic Long? Duan Hanshan said, sneering. What a joke. Azure's Void Realm legacy was the fruit of several decades of hard labor. They'd be crazy to share it with Zero Wing for a few training slots. This data was enough to help an ordinary power become a superpower in just a few short years. In fact, a large part of the reason most guilds didn't become superpowers was that they lacked effective training methods. However, as long as a guild had enough time, money, and this data, it could easily grow into a superpower. This was why the various super first-rate and super guilds rarely sold their research into the realms of refinement. Xianglong, if you've called us here to tell us this, I think it's time the Long family found a new representative, the crimson-eyed man coldly criticized. Everyone in the room gave Long Xianglong frosty looks. The Azure Chamber of Commerce did not belong to one family. It was the result of the 5 main shareholder families and a large number of non-family Grand Elders' exhausting work. It was unacceptable for any one member to sell the guild's secrets. I know, Long Xianglong said, not surprised by everyone's attitude in the least. He simply smiled back at them and continued, what I'm going to say next is the important part. What could possibly be so important that you felt the need to waste our time? Don't tell me Zero Wing can nurture a group of monsters, the white-clad woman said disdainfully. You've hit the nail right on the head, Belle, Long Xianglong replied, nodding at the white-clad woman named Butterfly Belle. Black Flame has promised that he can help us nurture 3 monsters that can unlock more than 100% of their mana body's potential. He's even promised that he'll help the 3 selected players reach 100% within a day. Cross the 100% threshold? Isn't that what the little girl from Zero Wing accomplished? Duan Hanshan exclaimed. Everyone that had watched the family competition had learned of how frightening Violet Cloud's combat power was. Not even a legendary expert like Sinful Flame had been her match. She was inhuman. Most ordinary powers thought unlocking 100% of the mana body could be accomplished given time, but anyone that had tried knew that the closer they got to 100%, the better their mana body performed. Unlocking 100% of one's mana body should be the maximum. However, Violet Cloud, who had broken past 100%, was definitely an extremely talented genius, and anyone that tried to replicate the feat would only be met with failure. Yet, Zero Wing declared that it could nurture inhuman experts like Violet Cloud. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. I heard the girl talk about it before. It seems she's not unique in Zero Wing. She even mentioned stronger members of the guild. Sinful Flame suddenly spoke up. Based on her expression at the time, I doubt she was lying. Zero Wing should have more monsters that have crossed the 100% threshold. Everyone fell silent after listening to Sinful Flame's interruption. These elders and grand elders were already impressed that Zero Wing had nurtured a monster like Violet Cloud, but she had to be an exception. That fact would be, more or less, acceptable, but they had just been told that Zero Wing had more monsters like the girl. How could they possibly believe this? Regardless of how unbelievable it was, however, Sinful Flame was a reliable source. This is why I've gathered you all here. What is everyone's opinion of this? Do we accept the offer or not? Long Xianglong asked after sweeping his gaze across the crowded reception room. Chapter 26-21, 3 slots. Chapter 26-21, 3 slots. Everyone in the meeting room remained silent, a fanatic light flashing in their eyes after listening to Long Xianglong's declaration. If Black Flame is telling the truth, and he can help 3 of our experts break past the 100% threshold, I think the matter should be negotiable, the crimson-eyed man said. That kind of strength would be extremely helpful during future promotion quests. If we can introduce a few Tier 4 players before the other superpowers, we'll have a head start when raiding mythic field bosses and forbidden lands that have gone untouched. We might even be able to occupy ancient ruins before anyone else has a chance. I concur. While our core secrets are essential, we'll need stronger combatants than we have now if we wish to further Azure's development. If we have a group of Tier 4 experts early on, the other superpowers won't dare target our key resource spots, Butterfly Bell said, nodding. In God's domain, the strong were revered. A strong individual might not benefit a guild when it came to resources, but they were a powerful deterrent for potential enemies, especially if those players were Tier 4 powerhouses. At this stage of the game, no one would dare think of attacking a guild city if it housed a Tier 4 powerhouse. Numbers wouldn't be nearly enough to bridge the gap between a Tier 3 expert's strength and that of a Tier 4 player. With 3 Tier 4 experts, specifically experts with extraordinary combat power for their level and tier, Azure would have an effective deterrent. Even without Violet Sword, Azure could safeguard its current resource areas. The chamber might even be able to secure more. On the other hand, keeping a tight hold on the guild's Void Realm legacy would only ensure that Azure's foundations remained steady. It wouldn't help the guild grow. Upon hearing the crimson-eyed man's and Butterfly Bell's words, the independent Grand Elders promptly nodded in agreement. One couldn't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Now that their potential gains were clearly greater than their potential losses, they had no reason to refuse Zero Wing's offer. I have no arguments against accepting Black Flame's offer, but how do we choose which 3 members to send? Duan Hanshan asked Long Xianglong. Interested to hear his answer, the Grand Elders turned toward the Long family's representative. Long Xianglong had summoned them here to discuss this topic, and Silent Wonder was a member of Zero Wing. The Long family was in the best position to negotiate this deal. These 3 training slots were incredibly valuable. If these 3 players broke past their mana body's 100% threshold, they'd rise to the apex of God's domain, even if they were merely Void Realm experts. Whatever faction these experts belonged to would gain quite a bit more authority within the Azure Chamber of Commerce. In fact, the slots distribution might cause a massive authoritarian shift in the guild. I realize what you're all thinking, Long Xianglong said, chuckling as everyone gave him serious looks. Rest assured, the Long family won't try to claim one of the slots for an unworthy candidate. Black Flame has already informed us that no random player will do. The 3 selected individuals must have incredible potential to make a breakthrough. As usual, the 5 families will have priority in selecting 2 players, and if one of their selections isn't a match for the Independence Reserve member, that player will take their place. What does everyone think? Taking the initiative, Butterfly Bell said, in that case, I nominate Boss Flame. We all know his strength and potential. I'm sure everyone can imagine how helpful he'd be to the guild if Boss Flame grows even stronger. As for the younger generation, Solitary Frost is unmatched, and we don't have anyone who can surpass Silk Moon's talent. What are your thoughts? The independent Grand Elders silently nodded their agreement to the suggestion. Normally, such opportunities were reserved for the younger generation, but Sinful Flame was Azure's strongest expert. If he could increase his strength, not only would he become a better deterrent for Azure, but he could also solidify the independent Grand Elders' authority. They didn't mind giving up a training slot for this. Duan Hanshan said nothing to oppose the idea. Rather, he was strongly in favor of the suggestion. Earlier, he had worried that the Long family would unfairly try to claim one of the 3 slots. That would leave Solitary Frost competing for the remaining slot reserved for the 5 families. While the young player had almost no chance of losing, nobody could say for certain that the independent faction of the guild didn't have something hidden up their sleeves. Now that Solitary Frost had been selected for one of the 3 slots, However, he had no issues with the arrangement. I'm afraid Silk Moon won't do. We still haven't been able to reach her, Long Xianglong said, shaking his head. Although Black Flame has given us a 2-day time limit, we should make our decision as soon as possible, just in case. I suggest we give the 3rd slot to Yang Xiaoqian. She's almost as talented as Silk Moon. What does everyone think? Everyone in the room stared at Long Xianglong, astonished. Even Duan Hanshan's jaw almost dropped. These training slots were invaluable, yet Long Xianglong wanted to give all 3 away. Moreover, he had just suggested the Duan family claim one. The Long family and Duan family had a ceaseless feud. Now, however, Long Xianglong had just suggested one of his rival's younger members take the 3rd slot. It was unbelievable. Inwardly, Long Xianglong could only smile bitterly as he watched shock and confusion sweep through the room. He did not wish to give this slot away, either, but unfortunately, with Silk Moon absent, the Long family's only other suitable candidate would be Long Xianglong himself. Due to his rocky relationship with Zero Wing, however, he definitely couldn't go. His pride wouldn't let him. While he could have suggested they send Burning Owl, trying to convince the other Grand Elders of the boy's potential would be difficult. Azure had quite a few stronger players that were Burning Owl's age, after all. Since the Long family was going to lose its slot no matter what, he might as well do the Duan family a favor. In any case, the Long family still had Silent Wonder, and because of her, it would have plenty of chances to benefit off of Zero Wing. Moreover, sending Yang Xiaoqian instead of Burning Owl would allow Azure to fulfill Shifeng's requirements and make training easier. Her potential had already been acknowledged as only second to Solitary Frost's. Lunatic Long, we have no problems with this arrangement if you don't, Butterfly Bell calmly said. None of the other Grand Elders objected to Long Xianglong's proposal. Yang Xiaoqian was quite talented and only half a step away from the domain realm. She was undoubtedly the best candidate after Silk Moon. That settles it, then. I'll contact Black Flame after this, Long Xianglong announced, concluding the meeting. He then turned to Duan Hanshan and continued, Old Ice Demon, please prepare Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian. Once we sign the contract with Zero Wing, send them to the Starlight Fortress. It will be taken care of. Once the contract has been signed, I'll take them there myself, Duan Hanshan said, nodding. Following which, everyone proceeded to discuss who they would send to Violet Sword's ancient secret land. As soon as they reached a conclusion, the Grand Elders were dismissed, leaving to prepare for the raid. An hour after the meeting had ended, Long Wushang represented the Azure Chamber of Commerce in signing a cooperative contract with Shifeng. In no time at all, not only had Shifeng gained the rights to one of Oceantide City's medium shipyards and golden lands, but he had also received a small warehouse in the city as a gift. Meanwhile, in Azure City's teleportation hall, are we really going to train with Zero Wing, Uncle Hanshan? Yang Xiaoqian asked Duan Hanshan, who wore a serious expression. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to rejoin Violet Sword's training if we do. Instructor Torre might just give up on us. Although she and Solitary Frost were members of the Azure Chamber of Commerce, and where they trained at was none of Violet Sword's business, these two were considered Torre's disciples. Training with Zero Wing would be a slap in the face to Torre, as if they were declaring that Zero Wing's training was more valuable. While Violet Sword's training is amazingly effective, this is a unique opportunity. Do you think securing these slots was easy? I doubt you'll get a chance like this in the future. Moreover, only Zero Wing can provide this kind of training right now, Duan Hanshan informed her coldly. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Uncle Hanshan, I agree with Xiaoqian. It is only a matter of time before we unlock our mana body's full potential, but opportunities to improve our combat standards and techniques are difficult to come by. We went to great lengths to earn Instructor Torre's guidance. If he finds out that we left to train with Zero Wing, I doubt he'll agree to train us anymore, Solitary Frost said. While he admitted that Zero Wing was quite capable when it came to helping players unlock their mana body's potential, passing up a chance to improve their combat standards and techniques for a chance to unlock their mana bodies a few days sooner was a waste. The only reason he had lost to Silent Wonder, in his opinion, was that he had yet to unlock his mana body fully. If he had, Defeating her would have been a piece of cake. With enough time, anyone could unlock their mana body's full potential. Hence, he firmly believed that improving his combat standards and techniques was the true path to power. You're only going to Zero Wing to unlock your mana body. You're not there to learn techniques. It doesn't clash with Instructor Torre's training. I'm sure he won't have an issue with this, Duan Hanshan replied. It's getting late. We should hurry to the Starlight Fortress. We shouldn't make Zero Wing wait too long. With that said, Duan Hanshan led Solitary Frost, Yang Xiaoqian, and a few dozen Azure members through the teleportation array and to the closest NPC town to the Starlight Fortress. Chapter 26-22 Changes to the Starlight Fortress. Star Valley, Starlight Fortress. Chapter 26-22 Changes to the Starlight Fortress. Star Valley, Starlight Fortress. A long line of players, including tens of thousands, waited to enter the magnificent, ancient fortress. There were also quite a few Tier 3 players among them, creating a spectacular, stunning scene for first-time visitors. Azure's 40-man team stood at the front of the line, gazing at the Starlight Fortress in curiosity. There are so many Tier 3 experts here, one of Azure's Tier 3 players exclaimed, glancing at the line of players behind him. Tier 3 players were still incredibly rare, and even the various major powers considered their Tier 3 experts mainstays in the guild. However, Tier 3 experts were a common sight in the Starlight Fortress. Almost 1 out of every 10 players was a Tier 3 expert. It was amazing. I've heard that quite a few experts have come to the Starlight Fortress for the Demon God's legacy, but aren't there a little too many here? A level 110, Tier 3 male Guardian Knight, another Azure member, commented. He could sense that many of the Tier 3 experts he saw were Refinement Realm experts. Some had even reached the Flowing Water Realm as he had. The mana here feels different, too. It's very calming, and it somehow feels complete. Standing here, it's easier to sense mana than elsewhere, a level 109, Tier 3 female elementalist said. If I could rest and train here, my mana control would improve far quicker than training in the outside world. While Azure's young talents chatted amongst themselves, Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian stared at the fortress, just as surprised by its mana as everyone else. So, this is 3 supreme elements mana? It really is extraordinary, Yang Xiaoqian muttered as she sensed the flow of mana around her. At the same time, realization also dawned. It's no wonder why so many of Zero Wing's members have fully unlocked their mana bodies. If they live in such an environment, their mana control will only grow stronger with time. They'll also have a much easier time unlocking their mana body's potential. The Starlight Fortress's mana, which contained the 3 supreme elements, was no longer a secret to the various superpowers. Only, none of the superpowers had bothered to expose this secret to the public. Naturally, independent players with keen senses had kept their mouths shut, as well, since they wanted to take full advantage of the fortress's benefits. After all, the Starlight Fortress could only house a limited number of player residents. This environment is only a close match for that of ancient times. Solitary Frost wondered, shocked as he bathed in the fortress's mana. He hadn't thought the fortress's environment, which supposedly rivaled that of ancient times, was overly important. It was only close, not the real deal. How could any location in God's domain still have the same environment as before the Great Destruction? In his opinion, the past had only had so many more powerhouses than the present because of how many complete legacies had been available during ancient times. There was no way it could have been because of some ancient environment. Of course, the environment during ancient times had been incredibly mana-dense, but all of the various superpowers had their own special training grounds with high mana density. Some of those training grounds even had mana that was far denser than during ancient times. After reaching the Starlight Fortress and experiencing its mana firsthand, however, Solitary Frost realized how sorely mistaken he had been. Even as a melee player, he could feel his mana affinity growing. Although his affinity didn't increase much, only 10% to 20% at most, this had already significantly improved his mana control. At his standards, as long as he found a good place to train within the Starlight Fortress, he'd likely unlock his mana body's full potential within just 10 days. It was no wonder how Zero Wing had nurtured so many experts with fully unlocked mana bodies. The Starlight Fortress's environment even astounded Duan Han's Han. Damn it. This isn't what I was told. According to the Intelligence Department's report, the mana here should only help players with sharp perception of mana unlock their mana bodies, not ordinary Tier 3 expert. When Duan Han glanced back at the players waiting to enter the fortress, he couldn't help the urge to pummel Azure's Intelligence Department. Duan Han didn't realize that Azure's intelligence reports had been, for the most part, accurate regarding the fortress's environment when it had first opened, but as time had passed, and the Starlight Fortress's magic array had continued to absorb more of the three supreme elements' mana from its surroundings, the fortress's mana had steadily improved. Now, even Tier 3 experts who barely noticed mana could reap immense benefits from the Starlight Fortress's environment. As Azure's members fell into a heated discussion over the fortress's mana, a crimson-eyed, blonde woman in silver light armor and carrying a runic greatsword emerged from the fortress. The players in line fell silent the moment they noticed this woman. She was none other than Phythalia, the Starlight Fortress's manager. Phythalia had taken care of many Tier 3 experts and teams that had tried to cause trouble outside of the Starlight Fortress. Just 2 days ago, she had single-handedly annihilated a superpower's 100-man, Tier 3 team. After her terrifying display of strength, some players, who had still considered causing trouble, abandoned the notion. Phythalia's inhuman strength was a direct result of unlocking her mana body's full potential, and now, not even ordinary domain realm experts could be her match. Greetings. You must from the Azure Chamber of Commerce. Guild leader Black Flame is currently preoccupied, so I will lead you to the Fortress Lord's mansion, Phythalia gently announced. How is this possible? Solitary Frost's eyes twitched when he saw Phythalia approach to welcome their group. He and Phythalia were old acquaintances. He had constantly tried to challenge her, and they had clashed several dozen times. Unfortunately, he had lost every match. He had hoped to challenge Phythalia again after his training with Violet Sword. However, he had never dreamed that she'd be responsible for helping Zero Wing welcome them to the Starlight Fortress. This was the commander of Divine Tribe's Divine Hymn Legion they were talking about. Commander Phythalia, I didn't expect to find you here. I thought you'd have gone to the demon god's shrine like every other expert, Duan Han said, similarly surprised to see Phythalia. The demon god's shrine in Star Valley had become a main training ground for domain realm experts due to the few special secret lands that were connected to the shrine. Not only could players acquire treasures in these secret lands, but they could also use the areas to grow stronger. Of course, only domain realm experts and incredibly strong peak experts could take advantage of these benefits. Due to the powerful monsters and traps within the secret lands, even ordinary peak experts would meet a swift end if they tried to explore them. Moreover, entering the demon god's shrine wasn't an easy task. One would need a lot of manpower to secure enough entry passes, and to make matters worse, each pass was a single-use item. Generally, only superpowers near Star Valley chose to send their experts to the demon god's shrine. However, Phythalia was different. Divine Tribe had the only temporary residence within the Starlight Fortress. Entering the demon god's shrine should be a piece of cake for her. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. While the demon god's shrine is useful, training in the Fortress Lord's Mansion's battlefield is far better. It's a pity that the battlefield can only accommodate a limited number of people, or I'd use it constantly, Phythalia said, a bitter smile forming as she shook her head. At the same time, she flashed Azure's members an envious look. Due to the recent partnership between Azure and Zero Wing, Shifeng had decided to allow these young talents to train in the Fortress Lord's Mansion's large battlefield for free for a few days. There's a better place than the demon god's shrine? The news astonished Solitary Frost. For experts of his and Phythalia's caliber, growing stronger by training was incredibly difficult. The fact that the demon god's shrine could help domain realm experts was amazing. If not for the problem of distance and manpower, Azure's domain realm experts would have long since made their way to the shrine. And yet, Phythalia insisted that training in the Starlight Fortress's Fortress Lord's mana was even more effective than training in the demon god's shrine. How could he possibly believe such an outlandish claim? Let's pause our conversation for a moment. Our time is limited. We should head to the mansion immediately, Phythalia said, ignoring the confused looks Azure's members gave her and leading these players straight to the Fortress Lord's mansion. Chapter 26-23, Zero Wings True Foundation? Chapter 26-23, Zero Wings True Foundation? Starlight Fortress, Fortress Lord's Mansion. As the heart of the Starlight Fortress, the mana within the Fortress Lord's mansion had changed significantly. From the outside, it looked as if the mansion and its surroundings were encased in a layer of crystals, and the breathtaking sight attracted every passerby's attention. Amazing. The mana here is at least 50% denser than in the outside world. It's no wonder why you deem this to be an excellent training ground, Commander Phythalia, Duan Hansan praised as he marveled at the glittering castle before him. The Starlight Fortress's mana density had already been extraordinary. It had been so high that it had even rivaled, possibly surpassed, the various superpowers' special training grounds. However, the Fortress Lord's mansion had even denser mana. One would be hard-pressed to find another location on the Western continent with such dense mana. If players could train in such rich, special mana, their efficiency would skyrocket. Even domain realm experts like Duan Hansan could likely benefit from an environment with such abundant mana. However, Phythalia merely chuckled in response. Without comment, she led Azure's group into the heavily guarded Fortress Lord's mansion. When they stepped into the mansion grounds, Duan Hansan and his entourage from Azure were utterly stupefied. Aside from the multitude of Zero Wings experts, over 50 personal guards stood guard around the courtyard. Even the weakest of these NPCs was a secret silver guard, and there were as many as 8 fine gold guards present. These NPCs could even annihilate a 1,000-man team of Tier 3 experts. Once their surprise subsided, Azure's members realized how refreshed and light they felt, as if newer, better bodies had replaced their old ones. What's going on? Why do I feel like I have so much more physical control? Solitary Frost exclaimed as he sensed the changes. Dense mana shouldn't have such an effect. It's not just our physical control. I can feel my mana control significantly improving, as well, Yang Xiaoqian said in the team chat. It's no wonder why Guild Leader Black Flame is so confident that he can help us fully unlock our mana bodies quickly and cross the 100% threshold. They had experienced plenty of mana-rich environments before, including places with denser mana than the Fortress Lord's mansion, yet none of those places had affected them in this way. They hadn't moved past the mansion's front courtyard, yet Yang Xiaoqian sensed a tremendous increase to her combat power. If she could train here for a while, she was confident that she'd reach the domain realm in no time. Her mana control would reach a whole new level, as well. Sensing the changes, Duan Hansan turned to Phythalia and asked, Commander Phythalia, didn't our agreement with Guild Leader Black Flame only entail 3 training slots? Has there been some mistake? According to Azure's agreement with Shifeng, Azure would receive 40 entry slots into Violet Sword's ancient secret land. As a bonus, Zero Wing would also help 3 of Azure's members unlock their mana body's full potential and break past the 100% threshold. Aside from Sinful Flame, Solitary Frost, and Yang Xiaoqian, Azure's members had only come to the Starlight Fortress to prepare for the trip to the ancient secret land and undergo some simple training beforehand. However, Phythalia had led their entire team to this sacred training ground. There must have been some misunderstanding. There's no mistake. All of you will train here for the next few days. As for the 3 slots, those trainees will go somewhere else. Unfortunately, I don't qualify to go with them, Phythalia said, chuckling. The Fortress Lord's mansion was a one-of-a-kind training environment, so it wasn't unexpected that Duan Hansan would misunderstand. If possible, Divine Tribe would negotiate for a long-term alliance with Zero Wing to train in the Fortress Lord's mansion, but it had a limited number of combat rooms. To ensure its own members could continue their development, Zero Wing could only afford to lease a few of these rooms. The only reason that Zero Wing was willing to splurge and lend 40 combat rooms to Azure's members was the high price the chamber had paid. What? The 3 candidates won't be trained here? Duan Hansan was a little shocked. He still had his doubts that Shifeng could help Sinful Flame, Solitary Frost, and Yang Xiaoqian unlock their mana body's full potential in a single day, much less help them cross the 100% threshold. However, after witnessing the Fortress Lord's mansion, Du and Hanshan wondered if the feat were actually possible. After all, this environment drastically improved players' physical and mana control. Azure certainly had nothing like this. Not even Violet Sword had such a wondrous training environment. However, Phythalia had just clearly stated that this precious area wasn't the three candidates' trade carrot going somewhere even better. How could Du and Hanshan possibly accept such a concept as truth? Even Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian wondered if the commander were playing some trick, using this as an opportunity to boost Zero Wing's reputation. After giving the matter some thought, however, they quickly dismissed these assumptions. Phythalia had no reason to lie to them. Not only was she the commander of Divine Tribe's second strongest trump card legion, but she was also a famous expert in the West. Why would she lie about such a trivial matter? You're finally here. Our guild leader has been waiting for you for quite some time. The 3 people selected for training, please follow me. Everyone else, please wait outside. While Azure's members were dazed, a man wearing Zero Wing's guild emblem approached from the castle. However, neither Du and Hanshan nor his team had noticed his presence. It felt as if this man didn't actually exist. Yang Tianxing. How is he so strong? Aren't his combat techniques basically a match for those 3 monsters? Du and Hanshan gave the man before him a suspicious look. According to the report he received on Zero Wing, Yang Tianxing was only an ordinary domain realm expert, yet he had obviously made considerable progress in the domain realm. Yang Tianxing was now entirely capable of standing toe-to-toe with Butterfly Belle and her comrades. Uncle Hanshan, should we go? Yang Xiaoqian asked. Go on. Make sure you listen to Elder Flame later, understand? Du and Hanshan said, nodding. He had only seen Zero Wing as a guild with no foundation, relying entirely on its guild leader for its success. In fact, most superpowers assumed Zero Wing's overall combat power was only on par with ordinary superpowers. However, when it came to other aspects, such as nurturing talented players, Zero Wing couldn't even compare. The guild would need a miracle to become an ordinary superpower in the future. However, Du and Hanshan realized how wrong he and the various superpowers had been after entering Starlight Fortress's Fortress Lord's mansion. Understood. Yang Xiaoqian and Solitary Frost replied, standing at attention. Please, lead the way. Sinful Flame turned to Yang Tianxing once Du and Hanshan had finished instructing the 2 youngsters. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU follow me, Yang Tianxing responded with a nod. Yang Tianxing then led Sinful Flames 3 into the mansion's lobby and to the legacy room, which was located in the heart of the mansion. 2 level 122, tier 3, fine gold guards stood before the legacy room. Not even Sinful Flame would dare make a rash move before these 2 personal guards. When the doors parted, Sinful Flame and the 2 young experts noticed a man standing in the legacy room. He was manipulating the room's magic array, and all of the elemental mana within flowed around him. As the man continued his work, the mana around him grew astonishingly dense, eventually condensing into a white mist. Elemental control? Mana mist? How is this possible? Yang Xiaoqian stared with wide eyes, shocked, at the man within the room. Chapter 26-24, Astonishing Legacy Room. Chapter 26-24, Astonishing Legacy Room. The term elemental control was foreign to ordinary players and most expert players. Normally, players would only understand what elemental control was after they had reached Tier 3 and started attempting to unlock their mana bodies. To achieve elemental control was to exert precision control over every type of mana. To accomplish that, one had to understand the properties of the different types of mana in existence. At the very least, one had to grasp the principles behind driving the 4 major elements. At this stage of the game, however, let alone gaining precision control over the various types of mana, the superpowers were still clueless about the operating principles of the 4 major elements. Hence, even domain realm magical class players were incapable of elemental control. Yet, to Yang Xiaoqian's surprise, The man standing inside the legacy room was controlling the ambient mana within the room as if it were a part of his own body and was even using it to strengthen the room's magic array. This was an ability all magical class players in God's domain sought. However, what truly surprised her was the identity of this man. Black Flame. After all, melee classes were inherently less attuned to mana than magical classes. In addition, melee players used mana much less frequently in battle than magical class players, so they should be less familiar with mana than magical class players. Yet, despite being a Tier 3 Sword King, Shifeng had actually achieved elemental control. "You're here," Shifeng said, and promptly accelerated the operation of the legacy room's magic array. He then continued, "The room's magic array is nearly fully operational. The three of you will be learning how to unlock your mana bodies here. In a while, each of you will have 5 minutes to experience what it feels like to have a fully unlocked mana body. What you need to do during this time is memorize the feeling of how the mana inside your body flows. Afterward, you will have to think of ways to replicate this feeling. Remember, each of you has only one opportunity. Experience a fully unlocked mana body for 5 minutes." Yang Xiaoqian was surprised at Shifeng's words. Although the experience lasted only 5 short minutes, if she knew what her fully unlocked mana body would feel like, she would have a much easier time unlocking it afterward. Moreover, she wouldn't have to worry about going astray and taking a long detour. She could simply head straight to her goal. So, this is the secret behind Zero Wing's strength. Solitary Frost similarly gazed at Shifeng in astonishment. Currently, the various superpowers of God's domain were already struggling to find a location that could help players improve their mana control. Zero Wing, however, could allow players to experience how it felt to have a fully unlocked mana body for 5 minutes. The guild was standing on a completely different playing field from the various superpowers. It's no wonder Zero Wing has so many experts with fully unlocked mana bodies. If the other superpowers were to find out about this, they'd most likely die of envy. Sinful Flame took a closer look at the legacy room upon hearing Shifeng's explanation. While players could fully unlock their mana bodies given enough time, the sooner a player did so, the sooner they could venture into locations that remained forbidden to ordinary Tier 3 players and obtain opportunities there. They would also have more time for other things. After all, exploring the mana body took up a lot of time and energy. Hence, shortening this exploratory period was also something the various superpowers were currently working on. After fully activating the legacy room's magic array, Shifeng turned his gaze to Sinful Flame and the others and asked, "Alright, who's first?" "I'll go first. Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian will enter after me," Sinful Flame said. Both Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian nodded in agreement, neither of them dissatisfied by Sinful Flame's decision, as they understood that the first person to experience the legacy room would benefit the least. After all, none of them knew what it felt like to possess a fully unlocked mana body, so they didn't know what they should do to maximize the benefits from the legacy room. By going in later, they would have Sinful Flame's opinions and suggestions for getting a better experience. "Very well. Elder Flame, please," Shifeng said as he walked out of the legacy room and gestured for Sinful Flame to enter. Once Sinful Flame entered the legacy room, its doors promptly shut. Silence then fell over the antechamber. Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian could not help growing nervous and curious as they eyed the closed doors. Even now, they remained dubious of being able to fully unlock their mana bodies within a day. After all, the further one unlocked one's mana body, the more difficult additional progress became. This wasn't a feat that could be accomplished just by briefly experiencing having a fully unlocked mana body. Trial and error required a lot of time. Meanwhile, as Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian were entertaining such thoughts, 5 minutes flew by. In the next moment, the doors to the legacy room slowly opened, and dense mana poured out the doorway. Both Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian were stunned when they saw Sinful Flame walk out. They could tell that the dense mana coming from the room actually belonged to Sinful Flame. Moreover, the aura Sinful Flame radiated was suffocatingly strong. "Elder Flame, did you fully unlock your mana body?" Yang Xiaoqian exclaimed in disbelief. She knew that, previously, Sinful Flame had unlocked his mana body's potential to only a little over 80%, so reaching 100% should still take him quite some time. Now, just 5 minutes after entering the legacy room, he had already fully unlocked his mana body. How could she believe this? At this moment, let alone Yang Xiaoqian, even Shifeng was surprised by this situation. Originally, he had intended to use the remaining 3 slots to the legacy room on Zero Wings experts that had good potential. However, in order to obtain Azure's trust and its Void Realm legacy, he had no choice but to give them to Azure. Even so, Azure's 3 candidates should still emerge from the legacy room a little way off from fully unlocking their mana bodies. After all, unlike Fire Dance and the others, Sinful Flames 3 did not get to experience the trial inside the legacy gate and gain a significant amount of knowledge relating to the mana body. Hence, Shifeng had been prepared to give them 3 of the ancient potions he had obtained from Poison City. Coupled with the effects of the Fortress Lord's Mansion's combat rooms, those should make it possible for Azure's 3 candidates to fully unlock their mana bodies within 1 day. Shifeng never thought that Sinful Flame's talent would be this high. Sinful Flame had actually succeeded in fully unlocking his mana body after just 1 trip into the legacy room. His talents were terrifying. During the brief moment Shifeng was in shock, Sinful Flame turned to look at Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian and advised, "Once you two are inside, don't use the methods you previously used to operate your mana body to experience your fully unlocked mana body. Instead, just focus on sensing how the mana inside your mana body flows. There are many mistakes in the methods we researched. If you insist on using your previous notions to experience your fully unlocked mana body, you'll have a difficult time gaining any improvements. Moreover, while inside, I sense that reaching 100% potential isn't the end for the mana body, but a new beginning. Even though I have fully unlocked my mana body now, I can feel that it is still inferior to the mana body I had inside the room. However, my talents are limited, so I only managed this much for now. Just like guild leader Black Flame said, give everything you have into memorizing the sensations you feel while inside the room and don't think of anything unnecessary. Only by doing so will you be able to gain a greater harvest. You might even cross the 100% threshold through this opportunity." Upon hearing Sinful Flame's words, Yang Tianxing, who stood to one side, nodded his head thoughtfully. As for Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian, they glanced reflexively at Shifeng in embarrassment. Previously, they hadn't placed much importance on Shifeng's words, treating them as mere chatter. They had failed to realize that Shifeng was actually giving them pointers. In reality, even Shifeng was startled by Sinful Flame's words. After all, he hadn't been giving any serious advice before, just stating the basic method for utilizing the legacy room. Of course, Shifeng did not show his surprise on his face, simply nodded silently at Sinful Flame's words. Following which, Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian also entered the legacy room one after another. Time flowed like running water, and 3 days went by quickly. In an ancient forest in the faraway Silver Moon Empire, Violet Light City stood on a mountaintop, overlooking the entire forest. The city teemed with mythologies and Violet Sword's members. Instructor Torre and the others from Violet Sword had arrived quite some time ago and were currently standing above the city's front gate. "Instructor Torre, everyone's ready. Now, we're just waiting for Zero Wings members," Crimson Star reported as she approached Torre. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. I heard that Mythology partnered with several superpowers. Their raid team attempted the elite trial yesterday. The 200-man raid team consisted entirely of bona fide Void Realm experts, some of whom even have fully unlocked mana bodies. However, I heard that even a fully unlocked mana body was of limited help inside the trial. In the end, Mythology's raid team failed to defeat the trial boss. Although Zero Wing has a lot of experts with fully unlocked mana bodies, they hardly have any Void Realm experts in the guild. I wonder if they can even reach the Hero Trial's trial boss. Wildfighter said, smirking. I'm afraid that's going to be difficult. I really don't know what Black Flame was thinking back then to suggest filling the majority of the raid team with Zero Wings members. If he finds out about Mythology's failure, he'll most likely die of regret, Crimson Star said, smiling. Once they team wipe a few times, I bet he'll come asking us for reinforcements. The Ancient Secret Lands Elite Trial already reduced the advantages of a fully unlocked mana body by a large margin. If not for Mythology's raid members having extremely high combat standards, they wouldn't even have reached the Elite Trial's trial boss, much less get the chance to fight it. If even the Elite Trial placed such a heavy suppression on the mana body, the suppression in the Hero Trial would naturally be much greater. In that case, the chances of Zero Wing's raid team, which barely had any peak experts in it, meeting the Hero Trial's trial boss were practically zero. While Wildfighter and Crimson Star were conversing, a steel behemoth and several gigantic flying mounts approached Violet Light City, their arrival causing a commotion throughout Violet Light City. Chapter 26-25, Foolish Azure. Chapter 26-25, Foolish Azure. They're finally here. When Wildfighter saw the approaching Crimson Dragon flying ship and flying mounts, he revealed a faint smile on his face as he commented, "What a grand entrance. It's a pity that they don't know just how much suppression the Ancient Secret Lands trial places on the mana bodies of players. In the end, they'll just be wasting their time and energy. Too bad we have to waste our chance to challenge the Hero Trial as well," Crimson Star said, sighing. Although Violet Sword had managed to produce the necessary tools for prolonging players' survival inside the Ancient Secret Land ahead of schedule, thanks to Silent Wonder's help, and caught up to Mythology's production speed, Violet Sword had also lost an opportunity to surpass Mythology. Based on their understanding of the Ancient Secret Lands Elite Trial, they were bound to conquer it if given another 10 days or so. However, the privileges players would obtain from the Elite Trial were far inferior to those of the Hero Trial. This matter is no longer relevant. Although we will be losing our opportunity to challenge the Hero Trial, Mythology won't necessarily be able to clear it, either. In the end, our guilds will end up even, Torre said calmly. Looking at the Crimson Dragon flying ship slowly descending from the sky, he continued, "Rather than us, Zero Wing will be the one in great trouble if it fails to conquer the Hero Trial." That's right. Zero Wing has most likely made the worst possible decision this time, Wildfighter said, nodding in agreement with Torre's words. Zero Wing had dispatched over 100 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies to challenge the Ancient Secret Land this time. While this would indeed increase Zero Wing's reputation, it would also attract plenty of hidden dangers to the guild. In the current God's Domain, the competition between the various superpowers was intensifying. If a guild capable of threatening the livelihoods of the superpowers were to appear, the fate of this guild would go without saying. After today, quite a few superpowers would probably join hands to exterminate this rising threat. Of course, if Zero Wing overcame the Hero Trial, then it would have a much easier time dealing with those future problems. Conversely, failure would mean a nightmare for the guild. According to the report we received, Zero Wing has come to an agreement with Azure. In exchange for borrowing Azure's strength, Zero Wing has agreed to nurture some of Azure's young talents. If, on top of Azure's help, Zero Wing asks us to send in a large number of peak experts, Zero Wing might actually have a fighting chance of defeating the trial boss, Crimson Star said. The only question now is whether Zero Wing will make this request or not. Azure's leaders have gone insane. While Zero Wing's top combatants are indeed exceedingly strong, how could Zero Wing possibly be a match for Violet Sword in nurturing talents? Because of this matter, many in the guild's upper echelon are very dissatisfied with Azure, Wildfighter said in exasperation. The guild leader also declared that we are to stop nurturing Azure's young talents from now on. With this, Azure has basically severed Solitary Frost's and Yang Xiaoqian's futures. Torre revealed an ugly expression at the mention of this matter. As for Crimson Star, she shook her head and sighed when she thought about the futures of those two talents. Setting aside Azure's other members, Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian were people capable of catching Torre's eye. They had the potential to become legendary figures in Azure. This was just like the commander of Violet Sword's strongest trump card legion. Back then, the commander had similarly caught Torre's eye. Now, he had already become a legendary figure in Violet Sword, his strength rivaling even the 5 great super guild's old monsters. Such experts could bring prosperity to an entire guild. Moreover, Solitary Frost and Yang Xiaoqian's youth meant they could guarantee stability for Azure for the next 2 or 3 decades. Now, however, Azure had personally severed the futures of these two people. During the time Wildfighter and the others were conversing with each other, the Crimson Dragon flying ship and the flying mounts landed before Violet Light City's main gate. A short moment later, cloaked players could be seen alighting from the Crimson Dragon flying ship and flying mounts. These players had used their black cloaks to conceal only their statistics. They did not bother covering up their appearances and guild emblems, so it was very easy to discern their identities. It seems Azure is taking its partnership with Zero Wing quite seriously. It actually sent Sinful Flame along on this expedition, Crimson Star exclaimed when she saw Sinful Flame jumping off one of the flying mounts. Sinful Flame was well known throughout the Western continent. His combat standards and combat power were extraordinary, and even in Violet Sword, one would be hard-pressed to find an expert who could match him. Normally, legendary figures like Sinful Flame would have a high degree of freedom in their guilds. Only when the guild encountered truly troublesome matters would they take action. Sure enough, Solitary Frost has come as well. If he finds out that Floating Light gained an opportunity to receive special training in the ancient secret land because of Azure's actions, he'll most likely die of envy. Wildfighter sighed when he noticed Solitary Frost among the Azure members present. Aside from the trial challenges, the ancient secret land also housed a few special locations offering incredible training environments. Only, the price to enter these special locations was stupendous. Originally, out of respect for the Zeus Corporation and instructor Torre, Violet Sword had been hesitant to assign the last 2 entry slots it held. However, due to Azure's recent actions, Violet Sword's upper echelon decided to grant one of the slots to one of its young talents, Floating Light. In terms of talent, Floating Light was inferior to Solitary Frost. However, because he had received Torre's personal guidance while training inside the ancient secret land special environment, his combat standards had undergone a qualitative transformation. Now, he could partially integrate bronze combat techniques with his Tier 3 skills. Had Solitary Frost, who possessed superior talents, received the same training as well, his combat power would similarly skyrocket. At that time, Wildfighter might no longer be able to hold back when fighting him. Unfortunately, Solitary Frost missed out on this opportunity. Instructor Torre, how is the preparation of the special tools coming along? Shifeng asked as he arrived before Torre. They're all ready, Torre assured. Glancing at the group of nearly 200 players standing behind Shifeng, he asked, how many people do you wish us to send, Guild Leader Black Flame? What do you think of 30? Shifeng replied. After all was said and done, this was a partnership between Zero Wing and Violet Sword. Hence, after giving the matter some thought, he decided to have Violet Sword send 30 players to join the raid team, a number that was neither too high nor too low. With this, when the raid succeeded, Violet Sword wouldn't seem completely unrelated. The Super Guild should also have no problem dispatching this number of peak experts. 30. That's fine with us, Torre said while stroking his white beard. He then turned to Wildfighter and Crimson Star and said, afterward, you two will personally lead the team and provide your full support to Guild Leader Black Flame. Understood. Wildfighter and Crimson Star responded simultaneously. However, when Violet Sword's experts heard Torre commanding Wildfighter and Crimson Star to participate in the raid, they were baffled. In their opinion, it was already a big deal for Torre to have Vice Commander Floating Light, a domain realm expert, take part in the raid. They never thought that he would have 2 of the guild's prestigious instructors participate as well. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Anybody capable of becoming an instructor in Violet Sword was part of the core upper echelon of the guild. Rarely would these individuals lead a guild expedition. And if they did, the mission would normally be critical. Now, however, Torre was actually sending not 1, but 2 instructors to participate in the raid. If word of this matter spread, it would definitely cause a sensation in the guild. Alright, make the necessary preparations according to our previous arrangements, Wildfighter commanded as he looked at the team of experts standing behind him. At Wildfighter's command, 28 of the Peak and Apex experts present promptly went into action. Guild Leader Black Flame, please follow me. We still need to walk quite a distance to reach the secret land's entrance, Crimson Star said calmly as she approached Shifeng. Once we arrive there, I believe all the necessary items should be ready. All right, I'll be troubling you, then, Shifeng said, nodding. He then had everyone on his team follow Crimson Star into Violet Light City. Chapter 26-26, Ancient Mana. Chapter 26-26, Ancient Mana. The sight of Crimson Star guiding Zero Wing's team through Violet Light City triggered discussions among the players residing in the city. Who are those people? Violet Sword's Crimson Star is actually guiding them. It's not just Crimson Star. I heard that Violet Sword's instructor Torre personally welcomed those people at the front gate just now. Amazing. Could those people be big shots of some super guild? Mythology's members grew curious when they saw Shifeng's group. Violet Sword's members, on the other hand, found this situation astonishing. Crimson Star was one of Violet Sword's Grand Elders. Even when the guild leader of an ordinary superpower visited Violet Sword, she would appear only to give a brief greeting, at most. She definitely wouldn't take the initiative to guide them. Meanwhile, standing on the walls protecting the ancient castle in the heart of Violet Light City, a team of 30-plus players was quietly observing Shifeng's group. Every member of this team was a Tier 3 expert at level 113 or above. Zero Wing's members are finally here, an assassin youth with 2 short swords said coldly as he eyed Shifeng with killing intent. Sandstorm, you'd better not do anything rash. They are currently Violet Sword's guests, a tall woman carrying a war hammer and a sturdy shield, standing beside the youth, warned. Relax. I know that much, Sandstorm assured as he concealed his killing intent. However, our agreement with Violet Sword is limited to the city. Once they enter the secret land, they'll be fair game. At that time, we'll get our revenge for the humiliation we suffered at the Starlight Fortress. I'm going to teach Zero Wing how foolish it is to offend our vice commander. That's for sure, the tall woman said, nodding. Although the vice commander's orders were to investigate first what Zero Wing and Violet Sword are up to inside the secret land before taking action against them, I'm sure she won't say anything about it if we just take care of Zero Wing as soon as they enter the secret land. After all, the demon god has clearly specified that if we manage to kill Black Flame even once, we'll receive a large number of contribution points and be able to train in the battlefields inside the demon god's shrine. If we bring him to the demon god, we can even receive the demon god's legacy directly. Previously, Black Flame only managed to win against us because of his fully unlocked mana body. However, he won't be as lucky this time, Sandstorm said, a smirk appearing on his face. This time, he'll learn what true despair feels like. The demon god's shrine was an extraordinary training ground, which was something every superpower on the Western continent knew. However, most superpowers were still unaware that the demon god's shrine contained some legacies related to unlocking the mana body, which one could obtain only by completing one of the 10 great quests offered in the shrine. Mythology was one of the few superpowers that had managed to complete one of the 10 great quests and obtain a mana body legacy. As a result, Sandstorm and a few other members in Mythology had already fully unlocked their mana bodies. With the support of the Super Guild's special advanced battle array, their combat power had now reached a completely different level. Just their team of 30-plus players were more than capable of defeating the entirety of Netherworld Empire's Hell Legion. During the time Sandstorm and the other members of Mythology were discussing how to attack Zero Wing's group, Shifeng and the others had arrived before the ancient Secret Land's entrance, which was inside the central castle. The entrance to the Secret Land was a spatial tear leading to the other world where the ancient city stood. Normally, spatial tiers were incredibly unstable. However, a magic array had been laid to stabilize the spatial tear, so instability was not a problem. Unfortunately, due to the ravages of time, the magic array was no longer as powerful as it was before. Now, it could grant the teleportation mark, which held the spatial coordinates of the ancient Secret Land, to only a maximum of 400 players that entered the spatial tear. These teleportation marks would be replenished only after the players that held these marks had left the Secret Land. So, this is an ancient Secret Land. When Shifeng arrived before the spatial tear and sensed the mana flowing from it, he was astonished. In the past, he had only heard and seen pictures of Violet Sword's ancient Secret Land. He had never experienced it. Now, Just brushing against the excess mana flowing from the ancient secret land filled him with energy. If even the effects of the excess mana were already so potent, Shifeng found it difficult to imagine how standing inside the ancient secret land itself would feel like. For a moment, he wished he could stay inside the ancient secret land forever. Guild leader Black Flame, here is your alchemy array, Crimson Star said as she handed a black cylinder to Shifeng. Make sure to use it before you enter. It will help you fend off the overly strong mana inside and prevent you from exploding from mana overload. At the same time, it will allow you to regulate the flow of your mana effectively so that you won't die from energy exhaustion. Thanks. Shifeng nodded and accepted the black cylinder from Crimson Star. He then activated the magic array on the device. A special rune appeared on his body, followed by a faint layer of light wrapped around him. Although the ancient secret land was an excellent location for training, for current players, it was both a curse and a blessing. Incredibly dense mana filled the ancient secret land. The ambient mana in the secret land was so dense that players would have their mana's volume and flow rate forcibly increased to a point where they would lose control over their own mana. As a result, their energy consumption rate would increase drastically, which led to death by starvation within half an hour of entering the ancient secret land. If players wished to survive inside the ancient secret land for longer periods, they had to rely on alchemy arrays to regulate their mana. Even so, players could remain inside the ancient secret land for only 7 days. The alchemy array used was a consumable. Hence, Violet Sword was desperately trying to increase the production speed and volume of this alchemy array. Otherwise, even if they held the ancient secret land, they could only stare at it. After Shifeng and his group were all ready, Crimson Star led them into the spatial tear and disappeared from the castle. Everyone was immediately teleported to a dense forest. All around them were ancient trees towering over 100 meters. Translucent crystals adorned these trees, giving the trees and the forest a mesmerizing beauty. The mana inside the forest was also so dense that it had condensed into white mist. However, despite the white mist, everyone's vision remained unaffected. During the time everyone was enjoying the scenery around them, a roar suddenly came from a distance and echoed throughout the forest. Upon turning toward the origin of the roar, everyone quickly noticed a 200-meter-tall, one-horned bear fighting an equally tall, six-eyed ape. Every one of the two beasts' actions shook the entire forest and deformed the terrain around the monsters. Damn it! Why are two region chiefs fighting each other? Crimson Star frowned as she watched the battle of the two giant behemoths. The ancient secret land was an incredibly dangerous place. Not only were there plenty of monsters here, but each region in the secret land would have a powerful boss ruling over it. Violet Sword and Mythology had labeled these bosses region chiefs. The weakest among these region chiefs was already a level 120 mythic monster with combat standards at the Trial Tower's 6th floor. In addition, all monsters found within the ancient secret land had incredibly powerful bodies. Even an ordinary level 120 mythic monster here could rival a level 120 mythic ranked archaic species found in the outside world. Normally, both Violet Swords and Mythology's members would do their best to avoid these region chiefs when visiting the ancient secret land. The reason for this wasn't just the high casualty rate incidental to challenging these region chiefs. There was also the fact that fights with these region chiefs would attract the attention of nearby monsters. Players that fought a region chief would end up having to fight a continuously increasing number of monsters and eventually suffer annihilation. Two region chiefs appearing in this location could be considered to be the worst-case scenario. In the outside world, there were indeed instances where players could take advantage of monsters fighting each other. However, the monsters inside the ancient secret land were incredibly smart. So long as they sensed the presence of players, they would promptly stop fighting each other and cooperate to kill the intruding players first before resuming their fight. They wouldn't give players any opportunities to take advantage of at all. Why is our luck so horrid? We actually came across two region chiefs having a territorial battle. Sandstorm, who was currently hidden on a tree some distance away from Shifeng's group, complained in frustration when he saw the two fighting behemoths straying closer to his team's position. Alright, forget about Zero Wing for now. We need to leave this place quickly. We'll be doomed if those two region chiefs discover us. The tall, female guardian knight standing beside Sandstorm said. I know. Sandstorm said, gritting his teeth as he shot a glare at the distant Chiffon. As Sandstorm's group was preparing to leave the area, Crimson Star also had everyone on the team prepare for a hasty retreat. Guild leader Black Flame, we need to leave this area fast. We'll be in trouble if we stay here any longer, Crimson Star said hurriedly as she looked at Chiffon, who was still quietly observing the two battling region chiefs. Shouldn't that way be the shortest path to the ancient city? Chiffon asked as he pointed toward the two behemoths. If we circle around them, wouldn't we need to waste half a day? That is, indeed, the shortest path to the ancient city, but if we get caught by those two region chiefs, instead of wasting half a day, all of us will end up dying here. Crimson Star snapped in exasperation when she heard that Chiffon was actually still planning to take this route to the ancient city. However, she also understood Chiffon's thoughts. They could stay inside the ancient secret land for only 7 days. If they wasted half a day on a detour, they would be under much greater pressure when raiding the hero trial. After all, with how many monsters there were inside the trial, they would need 5 or 6 days just to reach the trial boss. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Moreover, the two region chiefs were mythic bosses. In the outside world, coming across two mythic bosses would be akin to hitting the jackpot. However, they were currently inside the ancient secret land, facing monsters far stronger than those in the outside world. Challenging two mythic bosses simultaneously would simply be suicide. Otherwise, Violet Sword wouldn't have to be so careful when exploring the ancient secret land. Guild leader Black Flame, let's leave. If we don't go now, we'll enter the perception range of those two region chiefs, Wildfighter advised urgently. Our main goal is to clear the trial. We don't need to fight those two region chiefs. I guess you're right. We don't need to fight those two, Chiffon said, nodding. He then turned to look at Crimson Star and Wildfighter and added, I'll lure them away. Use this opportunity to sneak past them. After saying so, Chiffon dashed straight for the two behemoths. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,